Well, what a ride this has been. First things first, regardless of whether or not you liked the last season, you gotta admit that this was the biggest show on television, and the best show, to be frank. Although they spent like 5 episodes of season 8 messing things up, we've always known, or at least I think George R. R. Martin has always said that the show and the books will have the same ending. So you can't really complain. See, this is the thing. We as fans, we can talk about what we want, all we like, but at the end of the day, the author is the one who writes the ending. And that is something we need to accept. What a ride this has been. Over 9 years, was it? It was an incredible show. I mean, sure, my other favorite would be Breaking Bad, but it just isn't as big as Game of Thrones. Nothing is, if you think about it. We can talk all we like about they put a Starbucks cup there. Gendry said he was Gendry Rivers instead of Gendry Water. You know, for the past seasons, we didn't have as many mistakes as we did in this one. And I'm not giving them any excuses. I certainly criticize some of the stuff that they did in previous episodes. But I still believe that this is the best show on television. I don't think there's a point in criticizing the final episode that much because, you know, it's just over now. And there's not much point in criticizing any of it because they're not gonna remake season 8 and bring all the actors back. Like, even if the petition was signed by 2 million people, they're just not gonna remake season 8. That's just not how these things work. To be fair though, Bran was underutilized throughout the whole series pretty much, so when Tyrion comes and says he's had the best story, that's kind of questionable. I don't know how it is in the books, but I hope it's not as sidelined as it is on the show. He really didn't do much this season. You know, I thought he was gonna manipulate stuff and do one or two things, but all he did was talk about how they created the wheelchair. And then they just rolled him up to the throne. Well, the non-existent throne. I was fine with Sansa's ending. She has been queen in the north for quite a while now, and I think she's well suited for that, and I'm glad she fought for the north's independence. For Jon, I think it's fine. Like, when Tyrion was giving his speech, I thought he would play tricks and have everyone vote for Jon to be the king. Especially since the Unsullied would be leaving, right? They wouldn't really care, would they? Uh, anyway. Like, if the Unsullied are leaving anyway, why would they care if Jon was king? But that would be too predictable, wouldn't it? That would be too classical of a theme for the overall hero of the story to actually become the king. Isn't Aragorn from The Lord of the Rings the king? In the spirit of subverting expectations that they've killed us with, I think it's fine. To be fair, Bran being the king does have its advantages. I mean, he can see the past, present, and the future, right? Which means he can predict any danger. And I think not everybody has to have a glorious death. We've had all kinds of deaths throughout the series. Many of them were brutal and vicious, but it doesn't have to be. And George R. R. Martin has always said that war is not glorious. He wanted to show that in the Battle of the Bastards. He wanted to show how dirty and filthy war was. And that's why Jon almost dies in that battle. And, you know, it's muddy, and there are 1,000 people around him. So yeah, the fact that they were killed by falling debris isn't that much of a big deal for me. Sure, Dany would have burnt Cersei alive, or we could have had... Did people want Arya to cut Cersei to pieces? Like, what did they want? If you ask someone, what ending did you want for a certain character, they'll say, I don't know, but not this. But this is what the show creators wanted, you know? We have no choice, just like Dany said to Jon. We have the people have no choice about this, you know? You're telling me you want to forget about everything the series was throughout the 9 years just because you didn't get the ending you wanted, and just because the characters you wanted to die didn't die the way you wanted them to? I don't think that's fair to the show, or the show creators, or the actors, or everybody who worked on the show. From the very first season, when we got Ned Stark's death, to the Battle of Blackwater, to the Red Wedding, to Tyrion's speech, trial by combat, the Battle of the Bastards, Tyrion's escape, all these very memorable moments. I don't think it's fair to just look past them just because the final season didn't live up to expectations. Really, it felt like the show got too mainstream to the point where people binged the show and then when we used to watch it in the previous years, and when one thing would happen and you wouldn't know until the next week what the consequences were. Sometimes you wouldn't know one thing until the next season. So when you binge watch the show, there is no sense of urgency or stress or anxiety about what's gonna happen now, because you know that what's going to happen next is right at your fingertips. And with this culture of, this cancel culture of wanting to hate everything just to be contrarian and trying to be viral, at a time where having another opinion gets all the attention, you've got people who never really cared about the show talking shit about it. I mean, what is their favorite show? Is it The Walking Dead, which I think should have been stopped after season 3 or 4? That's been in decline for years now. You're coming to Game of Thrones in the final season to say that it's crap and it doesn't deserve anything? Oh, hell no. There's one thing I feel like I have to say, which is I don't know if John's character has always been projected to be the wimp that he was in the final episode for the first half of it, at least, before he talks to Tyrion. But God, that was disappointing. Oh my God. Like, the way he was like, oh, but she's my queen. I love her. And all that stuff. Like, that was so stupid. That was so unlike John. Like, I was just angry. John has never been one of my top favorite characters. My top favorite characters have always been Arya and Tyrion. But, and John is like, but I don't want to be king. But, he was Lord Commander. He was Lord Commander of the Night Watch, right? And so, and although I don't think he wanted to be the Lord Commander of the Night Watch, but he did accept that position. So, I just don't think it fit with his character how wimpy he was. John, he did love, for example, Ygritte, but he didn't. He still did what he thought was right at the end. And he loved Ygritte much more than he did Dany. Yet for the first half of the episode, he's pretending like he just can't think with his head, because although this tyrant who burnt the whole city to the ground deserves to be punished for it or killed, put on trial at least, he just keeps saying, she's my queen, oh, I need to follow her, and it just doesn't make any sense from my understanding of his character. Well, at least he did the right thing in the end. And I do like that Dany died. It would have been a tragedy if Dany didn't die. So at the end of the day, I say thank you, Game of Thrones, for giving us a great 9 years and something to look forward to every year. And thanks to all the characters and all the show writers, the directors, and everybody who worked on the show, from people who did makeup to the costumes, sets, everything was just absolutely stunning.